That's okay. I'm going to switch this over to the other side. So the whole month we're going to focus on love. How's that? Does that feel good? It feels like the right thing to do. And I mean, if you look anywhere, you can just find oodles of things that talk about love, especially in our unity teachings. And so I pulled out, like I like to do, I pulled out some of my books. And one of the first books that I pulled, well, maybe not the first, but one of the books that really grabbed me is by an old unity author that many of you may have never heard of. Her name is Imelda Shanklin. Has anybody here heard of Imelda? One hand and two hands. She's a licensed unity teacher candidate, and Jeanette's been part of unity for, I don't know, a million years. Anyway, Imelda Shanklin, yes, awesome. Anyway, she has a chapter called You Are What You Think in her book, which is called What Are You? It's a fabulous book, and I think I've preached off this book maybe 2 years ago, but I just wanted to share something from this, and then we're going to move into a little Charles Fillmore, who was one of the co-founders of Unity. So she says, you do not need to know what produces disturbed conditions of your mind. None of us never ever have disturbed conditions, right? I just thought, you know, there's a lot of disturbed conditions of the mind happening everywhere, all the time. So I thought she was, you know, we want to hear what she has to say about this. So, you do not need to know what produces the disturbed conditions of your mind, but you do need to know how to meet the condition. Okay? In an experience of this nature, you instantly should put yourself under special concentration and consecration to God. And you should mentally release the divine in every realm of your mind. With all the force and all the clarity that you have, summon and realize that you are an idea in the mind of God. We say this, don't we? There's one presence and one power. That presence is active in me and in everybody. So she's saying, when we start to get this disturbance, we need to immediately put ourselves in that field of knowing who God is and knowing that we are one with that presence. With all the force and all the clarity you can summon, realize that you are an idea in the mind of God. Not much argument will be required to convince you that an idea in the mind of God always is safe, always is animated with the quality of being what we call joy. A conviction of these truths will dissipate forebodings. So that's kind of what she says we should do. Could we be willing to do that when we start the conditions disturbance of the mind? Then she goes on to say, a sense of being troubled may come through sympathetic union with one who is unhappy. Include others in your assurance of the protecting presence. Your lasting individual good is enhanced by enhancement of the good of all. She's talking about how important our presence is and our state of consciousness is to impact those around us, to impact the world. And I think in this time, it's a really important thing for us as Unity students to be mindful of how important our inner state and our state of consciousness is. You are responsible for and responsible to everything that has existence in the realm of your abode. And I don't think she's just talking about your house. She's talking about the abode of consciousness. Your house is your consciousness, what's going on inside you. Body, mind, and spirit, actually. Train your mind to react sanely to the seethings of the human consciousness. Disorder exists for you while you acknowledge it. It ceases when you cease to support it by your acknowledgement. Do not let yourself be thrown into a panic by the feeling that something unpleasant may occur. Your feeling of impending danger is in itself danger. Your feeling of imminent safety is in itself safety. you experience what you think. Super powerful. And I was reading this when someone I know started talking to me about concerns about losing Social Security or paying taxes on it. And immediately I said, hey, I have something to read to you. This is, because what we do is we create these problems in our consciousness about things that do not exist, right? We imagine some terrible outcome for something that doesn't exist. So it's really important for us to anchor in. I mean, we're all unitics, we're unity students. And being a student of unity means we're growing and we're learning because it's a lifelong journey. So I thought, well, let's look a little bit more deeply in if we can begin to understand this idea of how our consciousness really impacts not only our own inner state, but those around us. What does Charles Fillmore say about the quality of love? Because we hear all the time, love is the great harmonizing principle. It brings us into a sense of unity. But he has some really interesting things to say. And I did a little research, and I found what was originally written in Unity magazine in 1898 by Charles Fillmore. It later was something that was put into a book called Talks on Truth, and that was in 1926, so almost 100 years ago. So these are principles that we're trying to still kind of bring into awareness in our life right now, but these are things that Fillmore understood and basically brought out into the world. And I want to just touch on a few of them because this particular piece of writing is called The Development of Divine Love. The Development of Divine Love. I want to quote a few things and then talk about some of the things that he said. He said, "We may talk about the wisdom of God, but the love of God must be felt in the heart. It cannot be described, and the one who has not felt it can have no concept of it from the description of another." And I thought, well, that kind of cuts my job, like, out. But it's very interesting because many of you know I've traveled to India for a number of years. Since 2006, I've been there like 17 or 18 times, and I've studied in India and brought back some of the teachings in India. And one of the things that is very powerful about these ancient wisdom teachings that come out of India, which are thousands of years old, is the teaching that when we are moving into higher consciousness, which is what all of us are doing here as Unity students, we're raising our consciousness away from just what is in the material. But what they tell us in India is when we're moving into higher consciousness, we actually don't get anywhere near it until we have what they call a flowering of the heart. The flowering of the heart is that very same thing that I believe Charles Fillmore is talking about here when he says love is a felt experience. It's felt in the heart. And so it's very interesting to begin to understand more of the Unity teachings from this perspective of the idea that we could talk about the idea of love as opposed to the experience of love. And for Fillmore, the experience is very much embedded in the body. He's talking about the heart. The heart center is the center of our love experience. And just take a moment in terms of your own life to feel into the experience of love when you just even closing your eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. If you anchor it in your body, where do you feel it in your body? Yeah, it's not floating around in the top of your head. It's in the center of your being. It's very much in the center of your heart. So you can open your eyes. You know, we say that love is a divine principle, and principle is something, you know, we can think about. But the experience of love is beyond principle. And when Fillmore's talking about the principle of love, he talks about love as a magnet. What does a magnet do? It draws things to us. And so part of what he's saying is that this principle of love is an attracting principle. And we've heard that. I mean, the law of attraction, that movie and all that, what the bleep, about what we hold in consciousness, we bring to ourselves. You know, it's part of the unity teachings, isn't it? Thoughts in mind produce after their kind. It's kind of a way of thinking about karma. But we're so much more than just the thoughts that we're thinking, right? We also have a physical body that has feelings. And just as Imelda Shanklin is reminding us, you know, we begin to have a feeling of something when somebody drops an idea over here, like, oh, this is going to be really hard. We might get the feeling of fear coming up. And it can literally become part of the body, but it literally is part of our emotional field. So Fillmore was he was so ahead of his time. I think a couple weeks ago I talked about his book, The Atom-Smashing Power of Mind. He was so aware that as human beings, we're carrying an electrical energy. We're carrying this energy, and like a magnet, what happens when you do this with a magnet and all the filings line up, right? We have that same capacity as human beings to kind of line up our thoughts, to line up our feelings in a certain direction. And what he talked about was really, really interesting in this particular article. And I think what I'm going to do, I copied it off the internet and printed it. I think I'm going to actually put it as a PDF on our website. So anybody who might want to really dive into this, it's a little bit esoteric because it's Fillmore, but it's very, very powerful and interesting to understand. Are you guys with me so far? Yeah. Okay, good. I could go off the cliff here a little easily. Plus, is it hot or is it just me? Anyway, we're dealing with the heat. We were too cold before, now we're too hot. So you know, one of the things that Fillmore has given us as one of the main teachings of unity is the 12 powers. How many people here have heard of the 12 powers? So most of you have. If you haven't heard of the 12 powers, as Charles Fillmore explains, are basically energy systems and energy centers that are connected to actual places in our physical body, corresponding very interestingly with the Indian teachings on the chakras. But these are energy centers in our body and also divine ideas. So they're two different things. And I think we can easily get lost in sort of the intellectual of it and think, oh, faith, I think, you know, I'm thinking I have faith in God. But it's not just the thought. It's the thought and then the outpicturing of how it shows up energetically in our life. So it's very interesting. What he's saying is these 12 centers that we have, faith and understanding, faith and imagination, which are up in the head, will and understanding, also up here in the head, zeal or enthusiasm back in the medulla, where the energy comes into the body, and power, the power and strength of the word and the voice, love in the heart, and wisdom down in the solar plexus, very connected. And then strength in the lower back and divine order in the front, sort of that we move forward and have balance in our body. And finally, elimination, or what we say no to and let go of, and life, what we say yes to. So these are very, very powerful teachings. When we look at how Fillmore talks about the power of love as a divine idea, he also talks about how there's a power in love as well. And it's interesting because he uses the example of the attracting power, centripetal, P-E-T-A-L, that draws this way, and centrifugal power, that love has to be both. And what he says is that we can't just use our thinking mind to activate the power of love. We can't think love. We have to use other aspects of our being in order to activate the power of love, the divine power of love, which is, again, that higher vibration, that higher vibrational energy of love. And what he says we have to energize is we have to energize the power of faith, who's Peter, the foundational energy that we understand God is one presence, one power, God the good, just what Imelda Shanklin is saying, and that we are made in that image and likeness. We have to have that as a grounding force for us. We also have to have the power of Andrew, who carries the power of strength. There has to be, our capacity of love has to have a strength to it. It's like we can line up all the magnet, but we have to have strength in terms of how it's manifest in the world. We also have to have the power of wisdom. That's why love and wisdom go together. Love doesn't just work with the intellect, it works with our capacity of wisdom. So what he's telling us is we literally have to activate all of these capacities within us in order to literally live in the field of love. I was teaching a class online on Monday. I teach once a month to this women's group, and it's an online group, and I don't know the people who are on the Zoom screen. And a lot of times people they don't even put their name, and there's no screen. There's just a blank person, screen there. And part of what I was teaching in this class, it was called I Fought the Law and the Law Won. That was the class, and it was about the law that says whatever I hold in consciousness, I'm going to get. If I'm living in a world that's in divine order, connected to the harmony of the loving connection, then more of that will outpicture my life. If I'm living in a lot of chaos, more chaos is going to come. And it all depends on my inner state and how I relate to those around me, how I'm connected to that field of God life where all beings are good. So I was asking the people, it was women in this group, I was saying, so let's look at what our state of consciousness is. So I had people look at what's your state of consciousness when you wake up in the morning, when you're getting ready to go out the door to go to work, what's your state of consciousness when you're at work, or if you're retired doing whatever you do, and what's your state of consciousness afternoon and then before you go to bed. And one of the ladies who was totally black screen and had some very random name like QRV or something, she spoke up and she said, I just realized when I wake up in the morning, I'm so angry and I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I have to go wake up my 18-year-old son so that he gets to school on time. And she said, and I don't know how to calm down, I don't know how to meditate, I don't know any of that. And it was so interesting to listen to her because I realized she was giving me the absolute perfect example of how this all works. So if you wake up and you're angry, what's the energy you're giving to that 18-year-old boy that you're waking up? And what's the energy that 18-year-old boy is taking to school with him? And how's he interacting with his friends? And how's he interacting with the people around him? And that's kind of easy to see, isn't it? But the other side of that was, this is a mother. This is a mother. What's the most fierce love in the whole world? It's mother love. It's mother love. It's fierce. So there's no question that this woman loved her son in such a way that she would get herself up really early to make sure he would get to school. But there was a missing piece in that love. It was like the piece of love that was missing was very, there was a weakness to that love, there was an anger to that love, there was a resentment to that love. It wasn't the fullness of what love can be. And when we talked more about it, it was very, very clear to her and then to everyone that was in the room what a difference it would be if she would be able to feel the love she has for her son. If she could feel that when she goes to bed, and if she could wake herself up with that feeling, that connection of love that she has for her son, how different it would be when she got up and put her feet on the floor, what she would be feeling when she would be going in to wake him up. So powerful.
Isn't it important to know why this, she's angry for some reason, something very powerful. Was that discussed?
We did not talk about why she was angry because she knew she didn't want to be angry.
Okay.
She knew she didn't want to be angry, but she didn't know how to calm herself. Because, and see, this is to me, this is exactly the teaching that we're given. This is the teaching that Imelda Shanklin's giving us. It's the teaching Charles Fillmore's giving us. We can think one thing, or we can get caught in a whirl of collective consciousness that tells us, oh, it's awful and it's going to get worse. And then we're often running to the races. And that's the consciousness that we're giving out in the world. And we know just from the people at HeartMath who've done the incredible research on the resonance of the heart, that we literally carry a field 3 feet around us, that your field is impacting the people right next to you. And if it's a chaotic field, they're picking up on that, and they're getting, if 2 chaoses meet, it's a big chaos. If we have some quiet, I was talking to one of our new people today who was saying how she felt Alyssa's presence behind her without knowing it was Alyssa. Now, Alyssa Van Til was just, she was a love beyond love, a unity minister that was part of this community for many years. She carried a presence so strong and so large that you could feel it without seeing, just knowing that presence is there. And we all have that capacity. Such a powerful thing. So I love this understanding of love, that we can feel about love in every area of our life. There are so many examples in this particular chapter that he wrote in Talks on Truth, The Development of Divine Love. He talks about how often in our life we set out with some intention to create something. He uses the example of creating something, bringing more money into your world. And the Secret and the Law of Attraction is a perfect example of that. He said, if we do that from a place of the intellect without connecting with the power of love and knowing the presence of God within us, that we aren't really able to manifest whatever it is that we are trying to manifest. So I want to bring that out to all of us. I don't know if you set an intention for the year or we had our White Stone ceremony, but there are things that we all want to co-create this year. There are qualities of being that we want to embody for ourselves. Maybe it's health in the physical body. He had a wonderful thing to say about that. Let me just find that page. Because we've had some, he says, sickness is not good. Well, okay. Because it is not of God. A person may find himself in its grasp, and he can hasten his deliverance by affirming the experience to be a good lesson that he will take to heart and profit by. If he or she bemoans his or her sad fate, they throw the shadow of gloom into the healing water of love, thereby corrupting them and weakening their restorative action. I thought that was really interesting, because we talk about healing here at Unity. Unity's based on Myrtle Fillmore's healing. She declared, I'm a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. So we could say that, but then if we start feeling sorry for ourselves, like he's saying, we're weakening. We're not using that power of strength to love the body and to love the healing that's happening and also to love the experience. We hear people saying that all the time. Oh, it's just divine order and there's a lesson and there's a pony in there somewhere, right? There's a lesson for me in there somewhere. And sometimes when you hear people say that, you're kind of like, oh, they're just like bearing something under the table. But basically what Charles is saying is we have to be vigilant in terms of claiming who we are and carrying that vibration inside of us. So I'm very excited about just kind of bringing some of this to you. One other thing that I think is really important is the idea that love does not have any judgment. Love is not good or bad. Love does not, it's a magnet of God. And so it's carrying this field of limitless possibilities. We talked about planting a seed, planting an idea in the field of all possibilities. Make your field the field of love, a field that attracts divine grace, divine good, divine wholeness, divine health into your life. But then using the powers that we have to really press out from that divine love what it is that's yours to speak, what is yours to do, what it is that's yours to say no to sometimes. So super powerful. He gave us a little meditation, and I thought I would just use Charles' meditation today with all of you from 1898, directly from Charles Fillmore. And it's a meditation to develop the love center. So if we could, yes, we'd like a little love center meditation music, please. So we're going to turn out the lights and just invite you to put everything aside. And take a few deep breaths, feeling the heart as that center of divine love. A center that is attracting all good, all health, all vitality, all consciousness of the truth of who you are and who everyone is in this global world we live in. The people, the plants, the animals, our earth. Breathing in to the love center. And begin by affirming that from this time and forevermore, I shall no longer think of men and women as other than divine beings. I shall see everyone as a gift from the divine. I shall always behold them with the eye of love, which sees only perfection. I ask today, and I ask daily, that love be made alive in me, and that love take up its abode as a magnetic center in my being. That love be alive with strong and steady pulsations of spiritual energy. And taking a moment to focus on the center of your body, on your heart center. Silently declare, you are the abode of love. You are the abode of love. You are filled, you are thrilled with the mighty magnetic forces that love uses in doing its work. You are powerful and active to do only good. And you see only goodness and purity everywhere. You are the abode of love. And bringing awareness to this presence of love in your life, moving into the silence for a bit to allow the divine presence to inspire you, to bring more wisdom directly into your heart, to bring the balm of love, love's presence, into any area of your life right now that needs more healing, more calm, more of a sense of peaceful presence, more of a sense of God's good in your life. As you go now into the stillness. We give thanks for the silent presence of love. May we come as little children into the sacred presence of God's love. May we stay open to the deep inner peace and harmony that are born of love. We say thank you. Thank you to the divine presence as we know that presence. Thank you for the power of divine love moving in and through us, as us, out into the world. And so it is. And gently, as you're ready, take a few deep and conscious breaths. And when you feel ready, you could gently open your eyes.